So right now, obviously, broadband's a hot topic, but we wanted to bring up a couple gentlemen to talk to you with broad experience in the in the power industry, to talk a little bit about their views of broadband, but also electric power and whatever else they want to talk about. So they're going to come up here and I think give individual presentations, but I'm going to introduce them and then they can both come up here if they could. So first, in alphabetical order, is Joe Brannon. Joe is the CEO and Executive Vice President of the North Carolina Electric Membership Cooperative. He has served there in that role, I believe, since 2012. He is a long experienced utility executive. He is a graduate of Penn State University in Lehigh. We won't hold that against him. And then we got Marshall Cherry coming up here too. Marshall is a native son of Bertie County. He is a graduate of Livingstone College over in Salisbury, if I remember correctly. He's with Roanoke Electric, where he's been for a couple decades or so, belying his youthful appearance. He's also a graduate of the READY, I believe, right? Is that correct? Yeah, the Rural Economic Development Leadership Institute. And that Patrick Woody might see fit to talk about in his thing on leadership. So you can see what great skills have been imparted to him in addition to his natural talent. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Joe and Marshall to the stage.
Three things I want you to remember from our conversation today: technology, connectivity, and quality of life. If you think about those three things together, this conversation will have meaning. If you try to get into the details and get down in the nitty-gritty, as most engineers like myself would like to do, you're going to miss the point. So keeping those three things in mind, I really want to walk you through why would a power company talk about broadband. I'm going to take you from that to why broadband is important. And then Marshall's going to take you through an example of how working together, partnering with people, there's opportunities to bring broadband to more people. So the first thing is, I talked about technology. Why is technology important? Well, obviously, from an industry standpoint, the electric industry, what we're seeing is a tremendous transformation. Technology's enabling it. Consumers embrace it. That's you. Everybody here today has embraced technology, and they're taking it to new levels, not just personally, but professionally, in your businesses. It's creating tremendous opportunity. We are blessed in this state to have some very, very good technology companies, some of the top universities in the country, a research triangle park. So technology is our lifeblood, and we want to grow that, and it's through the consumers. When you think about the electric industry, I'm sure this is exactly what comes to mind. And if not, hopefully after this conversation, it will. Because the electric industry, as you drive around the state and you see the wires and you see transformers, and you're really excited, I know you are. But in reality, what's happening is a transformation that you cannot see. And today in our world, we're trying to create things we can't see. One of the most difficult things to do is to imagine and realize. This is what the grid looks like. And to capture this, it's going to be through technology. But every one of those devices, every one of those monitoring pieces, every one of those enabling pieces has to have connectivity. So as an electric utility, we look at it from the standpoint of our own business. For us to do this and do this effectively, in order to do things on a real-time basis. Now, real-time is turn the lights on and off, and that happens, and everything has to change across the grid. It has to happen in a very, very short period of time. So connectivity is extremely important, but even more so than that, the people that are served through receiving that electricity are focused on one thing: their life. They don't really focus on that electricity. So being able to connect them to make that, what enters that home, even more important is what we look at when we say increased grid flexibility. It is about the consumer. And it's about making their lives and their communities even better. So when you think about it and you say, okay, why broadband and why is it needed? And we talked a little bit about this. In fact, we talked a lot about this so far over the last day and a half. And some of these points are repetitive. But in reality, what I like to think about is, what does broadband mean to you? And think about it this way. I'll give you two examples. One is, if everybody took their phone out, put it on the table and said, I'm going to leave for the day, leave my phone here. I'm going to stop at the next gas station to make a phone call to find out who called me, and then I'm going to return that call. Then I'm going to drive down the road a little further, and I'm going to stop at McDonald's and make a call. How many would do that? That's what connectivity means. And so we don't want to leave anybody behind, because connectivity changes the quality of life. So when you look at the left-hand side of the slide, those are the key focal points. But as Dan mentioned, we can't look at anything in isolation. Economic development really encompasses a lot. And one of the most important things is not to lose sight of the fact of the important parts of economic development and bringing it all together. The complexity that you face as economic developers is much appreciated by people like me, because it's not only complex, it's super competitive. And we all like to be competitive. But I like to think to be competitive, you have to be prepared. To be prepared, you have to have the tools in the toolbox. So broadband is important because that's one of the major tools. When you look at it from the standpoint of challenges, folks, we face challenges all the time. I love Dan's perspective. If you look at yourself as a victim, nothing gets done. If you look at challenges as an opportunity, a lot gets done. So all these challenges that are here are important. And there's something we have to recognize and realize, and if we do that, we're going to be able to move forward. But investment's key. Dan made another point about private-public partnerships. I would tell you today that to get done what we need to do in broadband, there has to be partnerships. This is a heavy lift, and you can't expect one industry or one company to do it. It's a heavy lift. So we need the partnerships. Investment is important, but we have to be careful with our investment. And when we invest, you're always going to look at your return. One of the things I'd ask you to think about, in different communities, you're going to have to look at your return, and you're going to have to look at time frame, because you can't look at the same time frame across the state. It just doesn't work. The other thing is, we talk about technology. A lot of people today are sitting here and they're wired. They have a phone. Okay? Wireless technology is extremely important to this country, to this state, to you. Technology is something we have to be very aware of. We have to be able to look at different technologies to help with this big lift. It can't be one technology. And there's a lot of good people and great organizations working on this technology, and they are in North Carolina. We're very fortunate. It's a matter of how do we get it out. One other thing that we talk about is access, and you can find it many ways. Senator Brown mentioned speed. I would tell you today, Representative Sain actually made me laugh for two things. One is having the name Jason on Friday the 13th. For those that are old enough, you can appreciate that. If you didn't laugh, you're not old enough. The second thing is the idea of young children getting together. How many are familiar with Fortnite? How many realize it's on Epic Games, which is founded in Cary, North Carolina? Okay. How many realize you can get a degree in college for gaming? So here's the point. That's our future. What those kids are doing is what you did, some of you 20 years ago, some like me, longer than 20 years ago. You dreamed about doing something different. Those jobs, those 60% of jobs that have not been created are being created in living rooms, in school rooms, in communities across this state. We have to enable that. And that's why it's important to look at that speed and access. We can't slow it down. We have to speed it up. Here's a map. Maps are good. Engineers have to put maps up. There it is. So the map is really trying to give you a perspective of 23 down, 3 up. Why is that important? That's going to be a new foundation. It's not going to be the sky. It's going to be the foundation. Because every device that's connected, we're going to have more and more devices. We're going to move more and more across that broadband arena. We're going to have the capability to let more go, and it's going to be from not only the homes but businesses. And so this is a starting point. I would like to look at it that way. Not the challenge, but the starting point. Someday, hopefully, somebody will come back, not me, but somebody will come back, put this map up, and it will be all green. That means 25.3 was the minimum, and we're actually beyond that. So broadband in North Carolina electric co-ops, bringing it together. Everybody can read the slides. No need for me to read this to you. But I think some of the key things that we'd like to look at is partnerships are important. Connectivity is important to everybody. But most important to us, as I mentioned last night for those of you that were at the reception, within a cooperative business model, one of the key concepts is collaboration. Collaboration means partnerships, people willing to work together for a common purpose. The second thing is, what is that common purpose? That common purpose is quality of life. And when you look at economic development, you're doing it for a couple key reasons, but one of them is when you, and I think this comment was made over and over, both in the hall and in this room, when you're done with a project and you can see the benefit it has, the thing that makes you most happy is to see the smile it brings to the face of the people in those communities. And that's what collaboration will do, and I think as we try to work together, we're just one entity. There's many entities in this state that will be working together on this problem and moving this from a problem to a solution, but a solution that increases that prosperity in rural North Carolina. So Marshall, I'm going to turn the mic over to Marshall. Marshall's going to talk about a project that they have been looking at and actually started several years ago in trying to couple the value of connectivity to their membership to help them improve the quality of life, but start with helping them manage their energy use. Why is that important? Folks, it's about money in your pocket. If you can manage your energy use or have someone help you with it, hopefully it puts money in your pocket, and then that allows you to do more things in the community. So with that, let me turn it over to Marshall.
Thank you, Joe.
I'll even give you this.
So good morning, everyone, and certainly thanks again, Joe. We really appreciate your leadership at our statewide level. Joe manages our generation and transmission cooperative for many of the cooperatives in the state of North Carolina, and so we have a very great working relationship as we all work together to bring affordable electricity in rural North Carolina. I'm very excited to be here this morning to talk to you all about Roanoke Connect. What is Roanoke Connect? Roanoke Connect is Roanoke Electric Cooperative's demand response, system automation, and broadband project. So I'm saying it in that order intentionally. Demand response, system automation, and broadband project. And so we've done it intentionally from that standpoint. But Roanoke Electric is one of the 26 electric cooperatives located here in the state of North Carolina. We provide service to over 14,500 meters in Bertie, Hertford, Gates, Chowan, Halifax, Northampton, and Paquimins counties to about 13,000 people in that area. So as you look at this slide that you see here is really the genesis of our project. It's rooted in everything that we're doing that's centered around this project. As most electric cooperatives experience, we at Roanoke Electric, we actually serve a population of folks that have been declining or flat, and in our case, somewhat declining over the past 10 to 15 years. So we do not really have a major influx of folks coming into our service territory, so we're spreading a lot of our fixed costs across a declining population of people, and you all can understand the challenges that can bring. So we've identified that our best opportunity for success is managing what you see to be the blue section in this pie chart, and this is our wholesale power costs. It's about 60% of our spend at Roanoke Electric. And so since we're not growing people-wise, we really have to make sure that we're bringing efficiencies to our service territory through our grid and optimizing it where we can. So we can do this as a part of our strategy through high-impact energy efficiency programs like weatherization, as well as HVAC or heat pump installs. We also put a lot of effort into installing smart devices like smart thermostats, as well as water heater control devices that will enable us to do more load management type activities with our member owners. Improving our monitoring systems also is another benefit that comes with a broadband project. And so it helps us manage our systems reliability as well as the delivery of the service that we're offering. And in addition, finally, supporting what we would like to call a multi-directional grid, as many utilities are integrating in solar, as well as adapting to more electric vehicles being marketplace in their service territories. So these next couple slides, or 2 slides, will really be more of a chronology of how did we get here at Roanoke Electric. Broadband is a subject that we've really paid very close attention to for many years, probably at least the last 15 to 20 years, been very actively involved in the conversation because we acknowledge what it can do from an economic development standpoint, particularly in rural areas. So we're, as cooperatives, driven by economic development and ensuring that we're actively involved in our service territories. But over the past few years, we've also realized the impact that broadband can have on our electric utility system as well as the industry itself. So we feel that the electric cooperative purpose, truthfully, has come full circle. As it was the case back in the 1930s, electricity was not readily available to people in rural areas. And here we are today in the year 2018, many of our citizens in rural areas do not have access to the internet. And so, particularly at Roanoke, we have a lot of what we like to call technology deserts in our service territory. And there are a lot of gaps where there's just no service available. The only option may be satellite. And so these gaps, they do show in a lot of our surveys where people do not have routers in their homes, they do not have internet access or no connectivity at all. So when we benchmark ourselves, we find that there's a major gap in particularly our service territory with respect to comparison to investor-owned utilities and even some of the cooperatives who are the larger ones and some that are located around more of the major metropolis type cities. So in 2014, what we did was we initiated a feasibility study to determine our role in this space, which obviously led to us creating a new company. And we created a holding company called Roanoke Connect Holdings, and that's a registered competitive local exchange carrier that has been filed and approved by the North Carolina Utilities Commission. It is worth noting here, though, it's never, honestly, from the very beginning, was not our intent to be a last mile provider, as we've really worked very diligently to work and provide requests for information and proposals to incumbent existing internet service providers as well as wireless internet service providers. And we thought we were at a very good place with an existing WISP, wireless internet service provider, but those conversations and negotiations did not pan out. So we made the decision in late 2016 that we needed to really just own this and do this ourselves as a wireless internet service provider. So this led to an initial phase of a 200-mile fiber deployment that we completed in October 2017. That project enabled us to connect our 12 substations back to our office. Particularly at electric utilities and many companies, this era of big data is very important. And we need a lot of packets of data coming back to our office. And so we were limited really in how we were able to have data remitted back to us with respect to how our member owners used electricity. So the more we're informed, the more that we can support. So this 200-mile build out, whereas we connected all of our subs, enables us to do that, but we're also able to have a little more intelligence around outage management and making sure that we're communicating better across our systems and even preventing some outages wherever the case may be. 100 miles of the 200 miles in our service territory on the northern end was actually a part of the MCNC build out, so we were very thankful for that. So what we've done is through this whole 200-mile build out, obviously there's a lot that we're doing internally to support our needs as an electric utility, but there's quite a bit of excess dark fiber available for last mile considerations. So internally, what we did in moving toward providing internet as a service, we started what we called a crowd fiber campaign, and our goal through that was to generate high-level interest from a significant portion of member owners who were living in the 7 counties that we do serve. The response rate from that came back overwhelmingly successful, and so with that, in addition to some further vetting that we did through an operational and equipment pilot, it really kind of set the stage for us to move forward with doing a project. So we are now deploying broadband at Roanoke Electric Cooperative, one of the electric co-ops. We're deploying broadband via a fixed wireless solution to be accessible, and we want an option to be available for every member owner of Roanoke Electric by the end of, within the next several years. And so we can do more projects with this. This will enable us to do more projects to optimize our grid through member owner engagement. We started scheduling and installing broadband services last month, to be exact. And so with 1 month in and still working through some of the logistics, we're obviously haven't hit some numbers. We're right at about 40 broadband accounts registered in our billing and operational support system. We have 65 of the water heater control devices installed on our system, and there are 165 of the thermostats, the smart thermostats, that are on our system. We've actually carved out our service area into zones and segments, and what we did that in order to identify the scheduled build out. This is a heat map that indicates the areas most populated with our member owners registering for service through the crowd fiber campaign that I mentioned to you earlier. So what we're doing is we're building out to areas closely located to our backbone. First doing that, but also for those who are showing the highest level of interest and extending out from that through building more laterals from out from the backbone that we've actually created. And so this build out is really tied to the engagement from the member owners through the crowd fiber tube that we did set up. This is some of the equipment that you will see, which we've located at our member owner's home, and we installed this across our system as well. To the left, you'll see the cabinet, which actually includes the Cambium router, which is a part of the build out. There's a transmitter on the pole that you'll see on that second picture. That third one is a receiver on the house, and that last one kind of includes the outdoor connections. So it is very important for us to connect interested parties along with our build out. So we implemented additional marketing activities as a part of this to align installs with the build out schedule. So the offer that you actually see on this slide ends on August the 18th. And that is the same date as Roanoke Electric's annual meeting. So we're able to offer discounts and several benefits with the build out due to the long-term benefits the project will generate for the utility. And so in conclusion, future opportunities, we're very encouraged by the potential that this project can bring. There's a lot that this project can do for us internally as an electric utility. We're having several layers of conversations with major stakeholders across our service territory, talking to healthcare providers as well as school systems, partnerships there, in addition to having some high-level conversations with EMS providers so that there's a network available during emergency type situations. So the build out, in addition to that, our strategy is to ensure that every member owner of Roanoke Electric has high-speed internet access available to them. But in addition to that, we will be building out beyond that footprint because we're receiving so much interest outside of our service territory. Several conversations that we're having now with many town councils as well as some of our local commissioners from different boards. So we're very excited about it, and the future is very bright for this project. Thank you.
So even though we work closely together, we didn't want to sit so close together so we can have a brief conversation. So one of the things we wanted to do in the short time that we have, first and foremost, I think everybody can see that the project that Marshall described to you takes time, and it takes a lot of focus on the key areas, the need, the financial support, and really the ability to bring multiple things together in a way to provide value, if not improve the quality of life to the membership of Roanoke Electric. But what I'd like to do is, if I can, Marshall's ask you, many in the audience are already familiar with what electric co-ops and our work in support of rural North Carolina. But can you talk a little bit about Roanoke Electric's role in the local community and how this initiative dovetails with the other efforts that you're pursuing?
Certainly. So Roanoke Electric prides itself on being a very active partner in just building a community. We've done a lot of work in partnering with local boards of economic development, commissioners, led several activities that will bring grant funding to the area to support quality of life in our service territory. This whole broadband space, though, really enables us to take a lot of our work to the next level. As I've mentioned, we've paid close attention to this broadband conversation for many years. It's been a part of our discussions because we see the opportunity and what it's done for other communities. And so this whole work that we're doing really is one that highly motivates us because it's something that we really have wanted to see for our service territory for many years. And the mere fact that we're able to have an active part of making this happen just brings that much more of a level of excitement for Roanoke Electric.
Well, that's great. And I think the other thing, if you could kind of expand on that, there's obviously the resident, but obviously a lot of the folks in this room are focused on economic development. Can you help us understand how this will help either retain or attract new business or businesses to the area?
Sure. So what jumps out at me, there's a business owner in Gates County who we've had a lot of conversation with at many of our town hall sessions that we've had over the years. He is a web developer by profession. What he's doing in order to finish most of his work, he will do a lot of his work offline for his clients. He's having to leave his house and drive across the state line and go to the Hampton Roads area of Virginia just so he can upload information. So we can see that, you know, that level of infrastructure being made available to him will logistically bring many benefits to his business. And so this is one example of it. And other things that we're doing, we're in deep conversations with, again, county officials to maybe do some things like partner with them to set microwaves on their tower so that there will be opportunities for us to provide not electricity, but provide broadband to businesses in some of the local counties.
Oh, that's great. And you know, when you think about it, and obviously a great example of someone that had to leave their premise in order to do the work and that connectivity and the importance it is, and obviously we're making strides. And so when you think about what you've done so far with Roanoke Connect, can you kind of help us, we want people to really take away, what are some of the success stories from the challenges that you've turned into opportunities? So can you give us some perspective of what you view as your early successes?
Early successes has been, to me, the responses from the people. Everyone's really behind us and they're rooting for us in this. And the mere fact too that this is again a method for an electric cooperative to really be an active part of developing rural America just says a lot. And so there are many folks who are in our corners, local stakeholders, our member owners. Every day we see something on our Facebook page asking the question, when is it coming? When is it coming? When is it coming?
Well, that's great. And one of the last things that I try to bring out of this is the folks in this room are really people that are engaged in what needs to take place. Can you just leave them with the thought, how can they engage in an activity like Roanoke Connect has started?
Just continue to be an active partner. If it's your co-op, like Joe said earlier, no one company can do this, but it does take collaboration. And that's a key part, I think, even in the message that I'm hearing, even in this conference, collaboration.
Well, great. And we do appreciate you sharing this with us, and if everybody would help me in thanking Marshall for his great work. Thank you.
Okay, bud.